everyone, and welcome to the August 2018 update of the Power BI desktop. As always, we're going to start off with the reporting features. The first feature on our list is one we're very excited about. It's our answer to the number one idea on user voice, which is a request for printing in Power BI desktop. We are adding an export to PDF feature. So what this means is you'll be able to take all of the visible pages of your report, just hit an export button, and get a PDF generated with all of those pages. And then you'll be able to do all the things you can normally do with a PDF. You can save it off to a share, you can email it off to someone, and yes, you can print it. So let me show you how to use this feature. So this is my report, and you'll see that I have 5 pages that are visible and 1 that is hidden. And if I wanted to print this report, all I have to do is go to File, and pick the new Export to PDF option. And what we'll do when I click on this is that we're going to load each page, and as we're loading, we'll print that page to the PDF. So if I hit Export, you'll see that we start spinning and loading each individual page as we export it. And if this is taking too long for whatever reason you need to stop, we do have a cancel button. While that dialog is spinning though, I wouldn't have been able to interact with the Power BI report. And then once, like it did, it finishes loading, it will automatically open that PDF in your default PDF viewer, which in my case is Edge. And so now, like I said, you can do all the normal things you do. I have my nice PDF that is accurately representing the state of my report. It prints off everything, custom visuals. It looks exactly like your report. You can see it's pixel perfect representation of my report pages. I can view it, I can hit my print button and then go and print off to my report off on the printer to use, in a meeting or to take on a plane with me, whatever I need to do with it. And that's really it. That's that simple. I got all of my visible pages. You'll see that I didn't get my tooltip page because that page was hidden, but all the rest came out in one click for me. A couple things to note, this export to PDF feature is a desktop only feature, so if you want to be able to print your report from the Power BI service, you will continue to use the print option that has been available in the service for quite a while now. Additionally, you will notice that this page right here is white. That's because the page, if I go back to my report, that page has wallpaper on it. So if I go under page settings, you'll see that my page background is 100% transparent and I'm using an image as my wallpaper. Wallpaper does not print. It's because it's not part of the actual report page. It stretches and moves and shifts depending on your screen resolution and how many panes you have open. It shuffles around behind the actual report page. And what we're printing is the report page, not the desktop's current view. So wallpaper does not print, and so since my page was transparent, my page background is going to look white. So if you happen to be using a really dark wallpaper and your page is transparent, and you had some white text, that's probably not going to look really good when you print it. So do keep that in mind. You may want to, if you have a bunch of charts with white text on a dark wallpaper, add a dark page background as well that is a similar color to your wallpaper temporarily to print it off, and then you can set it back to normal for publishing to the Power BI service. And that's the export to PDF feature. Make sure to let us know what you think. Next on the list is bookmark grouping. This has actually been one of our higher requests in terms of bookmarking features, and it's all around being able to better organize your bookmarks. If you're using bookmarks for a variety of purposes, including telling stories or presenting in different meetings throughout the day, or saving bookmarks for different groups of people who could be using your report, or using bookmarks for navigation purposes, you're going to want to be able to group those into near each other so that it's easier to consume your bookmarks. And so we have now added that feature in, so let me show you how to use it. So if I open my bookmarks pane, you'll see I already have a group here. What I've done was I grouped all of my bookmarks that I was using for navigation in this report into this bookmark group. So you can see there are 5 bookmarks here that are in this group, and I have 4 that are at the root level. So if I wanted to put these 3 into a group because they're a story, all I have to do is control click to select each one of them, and then in the menu for any of the bookmarks, I now have this group option. And when I pick group, we'll automatically create a group for you with those bookmarks. And then you can just double click to rename it to something else. So in my case, these are my story bookmarks. And now I have a group. And the nice thing about groups is that if I was to play the bookmarks in this group, because it's meant for a story at a presentation later today, if I go into the view mode, you'll see that there's only 3 bookmarks in this particular story, and those are the only 3 that are being played through in this play mode. Whereas if I went up to the root default view and hit the view, you'll see that I'm actually can from there play all 9 bookmarks that exist in my pane. So I'm able to, through playing through the root level bookmarks, play through all of them, or if I start playing from within a group, I'm only playing through the bookmarks related to that group that I was on. So this bookmark grouping feature is not only useful for organizing my bookmarks, but also for being able to create unique, different stories of my insights for different types of presentations or different groups of people as well. And of course, if you ever decide you don't want the group anymore, all you have to do is, when you're not in play mode, go and click the ungroup option, and the group is disbanded. And of course, you can always easily add other bookmarks to an existing group as well. So if you're using a lot of bookmarks, make sure to try out the bookmark groups feature to help you keep everything nice and organized. This month, we're also making theming generally available. So you no longer, if you want to be able to import your JSON theme into your reports, you no longer have to make sure that you have the preview feature switch turned on. You can just go in and import your theme. And don't worry, just because theming is generally available doesn't mean that we have now finished theming and we're just not going to think about it again. We do still have more theming features planned in the future. We just feel like the feature has now grown to the point where, since you can theme generally everything having to do with the report and the visuals, it's at a good point now for us to make it generally available to everyone. Under Analytics, we have a new conditional formatting option for our table and matrix. This month, the update is that you can now format by the values of a field. So if your field that you set up, a column or more likely a measure, is returning a color value, either a certain set of actual names like red or blue, or if it's returning a hex code, you will be able to actually just pick that field in the conditional formatting dialog and color by it. So let me demo that for you. I'm actually going to show you 2 examples. So in my first one, I have this column that actually is the colors of my product. So I have my product names and what color it is. And instead of listing the color name, what I actually want is the cell to just be that color. And with this feature, that is so easy. All I have to do is go into conditional formatting. Let's say the background color. And under Format By, I'll pick Field Value, which is the new option that will let me just pick what field I want to color on. In this case, I want to color on the color based off of the color field. And so hit OK, and we will just automatically apply the color based off of the name that is being returned. So you know when blue is the string, the blue color, black, black, etc. And we'll fill in all the colors here. And if I just wanted to fill the whole cell, of course, I can just go in and do the same thing for the font colors, pick the same field, and hit OK. And now I just have a cell block that looks exactly like the color that I am trying to represent. Now, of course, that's just a simple example, and more likely what you're going to have is you're going to have a measure, such as my color KPI measure, that is going to have some kind of logic. So in this case, I have a switch statement that, based off of my sales amount, is going to return a bunch of set of colors. And mine's pretty simple. It's the sales amount under or above certain values change the colors. If more than likely, if you're going to be going this route of measures, instead of using our color by rules conditional formatting, this is probably going to be more complex logic. Like it's, going to be like if the sales is under this and the date is past this due date, and my units is higher than this amount, some kind of complex business logic, then return specific colors. In this case, I'm using hex codes instead of color names. And if I wanted to color my sales amount column by that, all I have to do is select table and go under sales amount, and I'll conditionally color the background color based off of that field. And so I'll just go in here and I'll pick my color KPI measure, hit OK, and now my colors are applying. And it was that easy. All I had to do was write up a measure that had my custom business logic and return the specific colors that I wanted to use. And then I could just pick it and apply it to my table. So make sure to try out this new conditional formatting option and let us know what you would like to see next for conditional formatting. We're also excited to announce that Python, which is a programming language that's widely used by data scientists and analysts and the like, is now integrated into Power BI Desktop. And this means that you can use Python for a variety of tasks. You can use it for pulling in data. That would be the first use case. We now have a Python connector under the other category in the Get Data dialog. And from there, you can just paste in a script to pull in and create your data model. You can also use Python in the query editor to perform all of your cleansing tasks. So you can do a lot of advanced data shaping and analytics on your data, such as filling in missing data, finding predictions, finding clusters, etc. And lastly, you can use Python to create new visuals in your report as well. This whole integration is very similar to our R integration. You have Python installed. You can pick where you want to do your editing for it. Of course, you have the default script editor in Power BI, but you can pop that out into your own editor. And the whole experience is very similar, including the setup. So if you really love using Python for all of your data munging needs, you can now do that in Power BI for the whole way, from creating your model to doing your data cleansing and actually creating your charts. Oh, also, just one last thing around this, the visuals are very similar to R in the fact as well that they will get updated with data refresh and cross-filtering, but the visual itself is not going to be interactive. We also have some Q&A improvements this month, the first of which that Q&A is now generally available. So you'll be able to use Q&A both for creating charts through the double-click option to just type in a question and get a chart back for your report, and for the Q&A Explorer button launching experience that we have as well. Both of those are now generally available. You won't need a preview switch to turn them on in the desktop. We also have a better matching experience for Q&A as well. So, for example, a few of the improvements are that whenever you're typing, values are compared word by word rather than the entire value at once, which is going to result in some better matching with spell correction, plurals, and punctuations. So, just one of those examples, if you type in who works for Contoso Inc., that will reply not just Contoso Inc. with a space, but Contoso, Inc. period. Those are also apply because of the punctuation. For plurals, for example, if you say which employees are sales managers, that would match sales manager rather than just sales managers or sales manager. You'll be able to do all the different plural combinations of those words. And so there's better matching in that case. We're also accent insensitive. So if you're using a language where, or like someone's name includes, accents over certain letters like the E's or the I's, or those are ignored. So you'll be able to match both with and without them whenever you're typing. And also, if you have plurals in your data, you can instruct Q&A to match the singular values against them as well by setting the new plural normalization property on the column in the linguistic schema. This means that you can say which cashier was hired last week and have it match to cashiers in your data. This new matching experience will apply to Q&A in the Power BI desktop and also for Q&A in your reports that are in Power BI Premium capacity. So make sure to give this new improved Q&A experience a try. Under modeling, the first feature we have is that you can now set data categories for measures. And this is really cool because now you can dynamically generate both URLs that take you to other places such as other Power BI reports on the Power BI service, or also be able to generate URL images dynamically as well. So for example, I could do something like, right here I have a link, and what it's set up to do is that my report link is a measure, and I'm taking advantage of the filter parameters that we have in the Power BI service so that I can link to a different report I have, and I want to, if I'm only highlighting by, say, one of the different classes in my report, I want the URL to take me to this new other report I have with that selected value. So for example, and then I just put that, I marked it as using the data categories feature. I marked it as a web URL, and then I put it in a table and just set it up as a link. And so this is actually a table. I just formatted it so that you couldn't see any of the grid or anything like that using all the great formatting options we have. And you can see when you hover over it, we give you a preview of the link. And if I just click on Deluxe and then hover over it, you can see through the tooltip that the filter is setting my class column equal to Deluxe. If I switch over to regular, you'll see that regular is being passed through. So it's being dynamically generated at taking into consideration my filter context. Another example you could use this for is something around image URLs. For example, something really cool that you can do is that you can use DAX to automatically generate sparklines for your table. So for example, this sparkline measure, it has a really cool calculation that was written by actually someone, I'm not a DAX expert myself, someone actually in our community, David Eldersfeld. He went and he wrote up this DAX measure, and I believe he's actually planning on putting it into the quick measures gallery soonish in the Power BI community, so you should watch for that. He wrote up this measure that basically generates an SVG of a sparkline based off of the data in your report. And once I borrowed his DAX and marked it as an image URL, I was able to add it to my chart and have a sparkline automatically being generated for each of my subcategory sales over time, which is pretty cool. So, and I'm expecting not only David to put this one on the Quick Measures Gallery, but some other members of our community as well, now that we have this really cool ability to take measures and use them in new, unique ways in tables and matrix. I'm expecting to see even more really cool things happening in the Quick Measures Gallery, so make sure to keep watching out for new, interesting ways to use DAX. Speaking of DAX, we have some new DAX functions this month as well. They're actually focused on expanding the statistical capabilities of DAX. And if you use a lot of the statistical functionality in Excel, so for example, the formulas, the Excel counterparts to compute normal distribution or t-distribution, we have those same types of functions right in Power BI now as well through DAX. So if you're already doing those operations in Excel, it would be really easy to translate them over to DAX and use in Power BI. And the full list of the functions can be found in the blog, but like I said, they're focused more on the statistical stuff around distributions. The first of the new custom visuals this month is the 3AG Systems column chart with variance. And this visual is all around the ability to compare two numbers, so like forecast versus actual or actual versus previous month over some time, and be able to see the variance between them. So let me show you their sample. So you can see a couple of different examples here. So for example, in this chart on the top left, I'm seeing actual versus planned, and you can see you set it up by putting a category in the category axis, and then actual, the values for actual and planned in their very specific buckets. And you can see they format the actual and the planned versus each other. The planned being the white one and the actual being the black one. And you can see the variance between them in the column chart above that. And you can see, depending on which of the buckets you fill up, you can see the actual or the previous, and they color them consistently depending on which value is. So like the actual is always going to be this black, previous is going to be a gray, the hashing is for the forecast, and if it's planned, it's the white with the black border. And then no matter which two you pick to show, you'll be able to see the variance on the top as well. So if this is the type of data that you're trying to visualize, this might be a good visual option for you. The second custom visual this month is a scatter chart by Akvelon. And this custom visual is very similar to the scatter chart that you know and love in Power BI, but has some advanced capabilities like more formatting control, and also the ability to drag inside the scatter chart to select multiple points to cross-highlight by. So looking at the sample that they have, you can see that this scatter chart, it's set up very similar to the one we have. They had the same kind of structure compared to the core scatter chart visual to create it. And under the formatting, you can see they have, again, very similar cards as we do, data colors, the shapes card, formatting for the axis, but also extra things like they have the constant line that you can define for each of the axis. You can have a selection color to pick for the chart as well. Lots of good formatting options, and you can click and drag and have a rectangular selection for cross-highlighting multiple points. So I'm going to select these, and you can see that my two cards updated based off of the range that I had selected. So if you really like this is probably a good option for you if you really like our core scatter chart, but the one thing that you're really missing is this range selection behavior. Then this custom visual will probably be a good fit for you. Third on the list is a small multiples line chart custom visual. If you don't know what small multiples are, it's whenever you have a chart types, in this case a line chart, and you're going to break it down by all the values of a given category. And across all of those different values, you're going to see the charts all at once next to each other with the same scale, so you can easily compare across all of the different values of that category. And so this isn't a feature we currently have in Power BI, but this custom visual is a great way to start trying that out and taking advantage of it for line charts. So let me walk you through their sample. So their sample walks you through the visual and how to get started, and what type of fields you need for it. It's really good. It walks you through the different steps of setting it up and all the different examples. And then it has two different examples you can look at as well. So for example, this chart, it's breaking it down by, the line chart's down by month, and the axis is the year, and then the values are the average temperature. So each of the different colors is a month, and you can see for February across all of the years how the temperatures vary. And you can kind of see the seasonality as well. So January is a lot colder than July, and within any given month, you can see across the years if the temperature has been going up or been going down. And across all of these different charts, they will consistently have this -5 to 25 degree axis. You see, it's really easy to compare across the months how the line charts vary, and also within a given month across the years how the temperature has changed. Looking at their other example, you can see this one is broken down by different regions. So looking at births and deaths, you can see it's showing two measures, and it's broken down by all the different regions. And again, you can see even across the different rows here, the axis is the same. So really good for comparison. Also, lots of formatting options are available for this chart as well. So under the small multiples card, you can pick things like how much column spacing you want, how many multiples per row, what the row spacing is. You can turn the striping on and off, and you can decide if there should be a border between the charts or not, and what the border style is. Next up, we have Add Natural Language Summaries for BI, which is a custom visual that lets you generate a narrative to go along with the rest of your report. So these two are actually examples of the custom visuals, and you can see there is this text that is being generated by the visual, and some values of it are dynamic based off of the values that you put in the chart here. And it is dynamic, so that if I cross-highlight by, say, this tree map, I'll be able to see that the values in the text in the custom visuals update with that tree map value. And if I hit this little gear here, that's how I edit this custom visual. And you'll see that there is some JSON and some mapping going on in here. And I think the most important thing to note is that you'll need some keys and what content that you are choosing to generate, that you've generated in the tool for ARIA, and you want to pull that down into this custom visual and map it to the fields in this chart. So you'll have to link it to the content that you want to tie into the visual, and also put in your key as well. So if you are using this company's natural language generation, or if you're really interested in starting to do some NL stuff, and this might be a good company to look at for this. They do have a custom visual now in Power BI, so that can be pretty powerful, especially if you're in a industry where a lot of people are used to being able to read reports on the values, that instead of looking at charts, this might be a good bridge between actually being in there with the data and playing with it, and also being able to read a summary of it as well. The last custom visual this month is called the Pivot Slicer, and this is a really cool slicer visual that lets you not only have a slicer that you can filter on, but also have the values and ordering of the values in the slicer being based on different attributes that you define. So if you look at the sample, here they're showing a bunch of different movies, and you can see at the very top there's this selected section. This lets you know what you're currently cross-highlighting by. So in this slicer, I'm cross-highlighting by Jurassic Park. If I wanted to switch it out with, say, Pulp Fiction, I could do that. Jurassic Park disappeared and Pulp Fiction showing up. And you can see here that the movies are being below what's currently selected. You're seeing a ranking of all of the values, of the possible values at the slicer. And so it's showing the top 6 based off of the different attributes that I defined that I wanted to rank the values off of. In my case, the average rating and the actual number rating as well. So they give me the total ranking based off of those 2 factors right at the top, and then you can see the breakdown of the top 6 for the individual attributes that I'm rating rating based off of, so the average rating and the numbers of ratings. And I can also choose how much weight to give both of those attributes. So if I really wanted the number of ratings to weigh actually more, I can increase that, and you can see how the values and the orderings of them adjust based off of my changing of the weights. You can also mark a few of the attributes as things that you are your kind of like favorites, like bookmark them, and they put them to the top. And while these aren't necessarily selected right now, then because I have flagged them like I did before, it's a lot easier for me to choose to cross-highlight or filter by those as well. And as I click on those, it adds those to the list along with The Godfather Part 2, which I had already been placed in my list. And of course I can easily just remove those from the top as well. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with this slicer, and they have a lot of good examples in the sample as well. So I definitely recommend downloading this sample and playing with just all the different combinations of slicer settings that you can find. You can see there's lots of stuff going on in this field list, lots of different combinations of not only attributes, but also other ways to like rank and do analysis over the data that you're putting into your slicer. So definitely download the sample and start playing with it. Lastly, under the data connectivity section, we are very excited to announce that our Spark connector is now generally available. You are able to now use this connector, no beta, no preview, just right there ready to use under the other category in the Get Data dialog, and you'll be able to use it to do both direct query and import data models. So that's all the features for our August release. Make sure to let us know what you think and what you would like to see us add in a future update as well. Thank you.